Hello, good evening. Welcome back to Ending Well with Minnelle. I am Minnelle, the pre-planning funeral director at the New Haven Funeral Center and host of this show. I am happy to come back. Today's a solo episode, so I'm going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to try to connect some people from Instagram because some people have been saying that they're having a hard time finding where the show is. So if you're on Instagram and you want to join the conversation, please go to my stories. If you go to my stories, you'll see the links there where you can join the conversation. I'll be here for a little bit just so people can see what's going on and then they can jump over. So if you're looking for where to find Ending Well with Minnelle, go to my stories, go to the highlights, and you'll see the links to where we'll be, and then come and join us on YouTube or on Facebook. All right. Hello and good evening. Hi. All right. So, welcome to Ending Well with Minnelle again. Tonight, we're going to be having a conversation with me. We'll be talking about some of the questions that people have been asking me. I've got a few lists here and some things that I found online as well that I thought was pretty interesting and good for us to talk about. So join me, join the conversation in the comments. So if you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, join the conversation in the comments, ask any questions you have as well, and let's try to share some of this information together. All right. So come on, hop over with me onto Facebook or YouTube. You'll see the link in my bio. All right. So let's talk about a couple of things. First, just to give you an idea of who I am, I try to do this more often so people understand the experience I have and I guess where I'm coming from when I'm answering these questions. So I am a funeral director, right? I'm a fully licensed funeral director. So I've gone to school. I've done all aspects of funeral services from the embalming to the pre-planning is where I focus now. I'm also a crematorium operator. So a lot of people didn't know that. When I get interested in something, I like to go a little bit deeper. So I did some more study and learned about what the process was to become a crematorium operator. And so I do that. I went and studied and learned about what the process is to become an end-of-life doula. That is someone who helps people pass, who advocates for the person and the family at the end-of-life process. I have also become a certified executive assistant. What that means is I help families close estates, those who have to go through the process of closing an estate for a loved one. I can help you through that process and kind of educate you on what's involved, hoping now to help us all plan ahead so that we're not going through a really rough time when someone has passed away. Hello everybody on Instagram. I'm here to invite you to go to my stories. If you're looking for where is this live conversation and how can I join it, if you go to the highlights, you'll be able to see there the links to the YouTube or the Facebook. So you can always join the conversation there if you want to be in the comments. Okay, so that's my background. And now let's get into some of the questions that I see that I can help answer. Okay, so one of the first ones I have is, why is it important to share with all of my family what my wishes are? And I think this question came from a family who was in process of making their prearrangements with me, and they wanted to do something pretty specific, but they didn't necessarily want to tell every single person in their family as to what is going on. So if they didn't want to tell everybody, they don't want everyone to know what their plans are. They just kind of want to make some arrangements and then let some people find out. When it comes to your will and specifics as to your assets, what you're giving to beneficiaries, things like that, yes, absolutely. Use discretion as to who you're sharing with, what information you're sharing, because not everybody is going to handle that information very well or will even want to know ahead of time. Some people are uncomfortable with that. Also, when it comes to things such as your funeral wishes, or not also, but when it comes to things such as your funeral wishes, it's important that your family not only knows, but is okay with your wishes. Meaning, if you are someone, and it's going to come up again, actually, I had this conversation again. If you're someone who wants, let's say, to have your body sent home, you want to have a service here and you want your body sent home, that's your wish. It's important that your family and maybe all of your children would be on the same page as to what your wishes are. Because if 3 of them know that this was your plan, but one of them you never bothered to tell, now they're going to feel left out. These are the things that we see as funeral directors, kind of the after effects of the plans that people have made. And I know that many times we make these plans, we go ahead and make our arrangements ahead of time, trying to prevent these things from happening. But the emotional aspect of funeral execution can be difficult. And a lot of emotions are there. Emotions are very high. Family is trying to navigate difference of opinions, different of feelings. So anything you can do to share what you'd like to have it clear and across the board so that everybody is on the same page. The more information that you can share that way, the easier it will be for them to follow along and to agree at the time of your passing. So that's my tidbit for you with regards to why it's important to share this information with your family. Hello everybody on Instagram. I am live on Facebook and on YouTube. You can find the link in the stories if you want to join the conversation. I'm just here to show you guys where I'll be. This is interesting. Okay, so please take that. I hope that it helps you when it comes to thinking about making arrangements and planning ahead and what you're going to share with your family. Having these conversations they're not easy, they're not simple, but they're really important. And if you have them one time, or even if you don't want to talk to everybody, but you want to write it down, that is another option. It might even be better because if you write that down, it's clear. Everybody knows, yes, this is what I'd like to do. And then they can just see it, right? If it is clear, there's no questions to be asked. They know what your wishes are and they can move forward. You're cooking, but you're listening. Absolutely. Thank you for joining me while cooking. I'm happy to share. All right. That's fun. Okay, so let's go through another question. And if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments and share them just so that we can all learn together. Okay. So someone was asking, this is a one that I hear, well, this is what I do. Someone was asking that they didn't realize that prices could be locked in when it comes to making funeral arrangements. Yep, absolutely they can. The reason that we do pre-plan funerals, the reason that we do this ahead of time is so that you can lock in that price. I tell this story often of a lady. So there was this older lady who had pre-planned her funeral from before I was even born, like a long, long time ago. So her whole funeral was done, arranged, price locked in. Doesn't matter what inflation is, doesn't matter how the costs have gone up so much these days. Her cost is what it is. She decided she wanted to add one day of viewing, just one day of viewing to her funeral arrangement. And it ended up costing her more than, not more, but just about the same cost as her whole funeral arrangement was when she had first arranged it. And we had a good laugh about it because she's saying, imagine if I had to do this now, you know? But that's the whole reason that you plan ahead so that you don't have to worry about that. So locking in that price, definitely it's something that can be done when you're planning your funeral. Okay. Hello. Hi on Instagram. All right. Another question I have, here we go. My cousin is planning a funeral. She's saying that it's been very stressful. And what are some things that she can do so that it's easier for her family? Okay. So if you have ever planned a funeral before, if you've ever gone through that process, then you know that yes, it is very difficult. Yes, there's a lot to be done. So is there anything that you can do now to make it easier for your family at the time? Absolutely. The more, as I was saying before, the more you write things down, the more you set things in place, the easier it will be. We are younger. If you're like me, I'm going to call myself younger, right? When it comes to planning ahead, you're going to want to make sure you have your will done. Go ahead, write some things down, talk to a lawyer, ideally. You can use something like Willful. I have a discount code. Actually, I should share that with you guys. You can use something like Willful. That's if you have a really simple estate and you just want something easily done. It's all digital. It's done with lawyers. It's easy. You can write it down, even if you do nothing else, as long as you have something, it's better than passing away with nothing. So your will, your power of attorney documents, we talk about that all the time. That's who is going to be speaking on your behalf. Have those documents in place so that your family knows who has that right. Also do your living will. That's giving your power of attorney, your family, giving them instructions as to what's important to you. So how do you want to be treated if you go to the hospital? What's important to you in that way? What are some things that you care about when it comes to your finances. Who do you want to make sure your bills are paid? Which bills have to be paid? All of those things you can leave for your family so that they have instructions on what to do if you're incapacitated and they need to take over. So your will, your power of attorney, doing your funeral pre-plan, getting that done. Now they don't have to worry about that process. Having your cemetery cremation applications, all those things completed so that that part is done as well. And then this is the part I love. It's your legacy, right? So at the end, your personal legacy. Your personal legacy is sharing your story. A lot of times we get caught up in the paperwork, in the insurances, in the finances, and that part of planning an estate, but we forget about how important those stories, that time, and those small moments are. So if you're thinking, what can I do now to start making it easier for my family? Plan and talk to them. Share who you are, share what's important to you, because the more that they know that, the easier it will be for them to make these decisions. Okay. So when it comes to the wishes, what does write it when it comes to the wishes, is writing it down okay? Or does it have to be notarized or in a will? Great question. Ideally, if you have nothing else and there's nothing else that you're going to do, some people are just never going to go, I wouldn't say never, but they're avoiding going to a lawyer. And so you don't want to do that. If that's the case where you just don't want to, okay, write it down. At least in that case, it's something that is written down entirely by you. Your wishes are there, they're clear. There is something that your family can lean on. The next step up is to have it done, maybe something virtually, like I was talking about the willful. That's online. It does not have to be notarized. You can just do it all online, print it, sign it. It is there for you, right? So there's different ways that we can do that, which makes it a little bit easier. Now, if you have a simple estate, meaning I have, one job all of my life, I have one pension that I will be getting, and I have one child. I don't know. But like if it is simple, okay. Okay. It is something it will do for you. You will be fine. It's great for some, I would say okay, but it works for someone who has a simple estate. A lot of if you come onto my lives, like a lot of our professionals, a lot of our entrepreneurs, a lot of our people with multiple jobs, a lot of our people who might have been divorced. Once your estate gets a little bit complicated, now you might not be a candidate. And they'll tell you for something like an online will, because in that case, now it's more complicated. You need someone else to think of the things that we're not thinking about. It might seem clear to you, but remember that your family is looking at this many years down the line, and they're trying to assess what is it that you might have been trying to say, as opposed to just reading it now where you can clarify and say, oh, this is what I meant. So you want it to be as clear as possible so that nobody is misconstruing what you're saying. And then your wishes will actually be acted on. And yes, absolutely, it can be contested. A holograph will, that's the one you write by yourself, it 100% can be contested, because now we're trying to decide, is that what you were trying to say? If you're on Instagram, I'm just going to come over to the one. So feel free to join me on Facebook or on Instagram Live. Both links are in my stories and also in the highlights. All right. Hopefully I'll see you on the side. Okay. My poor Wi-Fi is doing a thing. Okay. Yes. If you're doing a holograph will, it can absolutely be contested. If you are doing a online will, they can still be contested. Anything can. But in that case, it has been still backed by a lawyer. So you have more protection, right? There are some things that are clearer there, already written and legally displayed, so that it cannot, not that it can't be contested, but at least you have more footing to stand on. Your best bet, of course, is to have a personalized will done. And in that case, it is now written in proper language to protect your wishes. Yeah, great question. Thank you. Okay, here's another interesting situation. So in this case, someone was planning their funeral, and what they were saying is, I don't want people coming to cry about me who I never saw in life. How do I stop people from coming to my funeral? So here's the thing. Um, the funeral is for those who we've left behind. You can, of course, make it clear that, okay, Sister Ray Ray, Tay Tay, whoever it might be, they were not friendly with you in life. Therefore, you do not want them to attend your funeral. What happens at the time of your passing? That's you, right? What happens at the time of your passing can be a little bit complicated for family, can be a little bit difficult for family because now they have to navigate that on your behalf, right? Yes, right. Feel the love. They're navigating that for you, and that can be difficult for them, right? So, yes, let your wishes be known. Ideally, tell them so they don't come, but I get that that's not always simple. And maybe, maybe now you have a smaller service. If it is something where it's not easy to do, maybe you're going to have a private service where you're only going to invite, wow, you're only going to invite certain people there. She's saying, at least saying that she wants to have security at her funeral. So you have to be like, remember during COVID time? During COVID time, there was a list of who could come in, right? Because of the restrictions that we had. So we'll do the same for you. We'll have a list with security saying who can enter and who can come to the funeral. And if you're not on the list, I'm sorry, you have to go. And you know what? You can do that if you want to. That is your service. It will be done your way. Everything is personalized based on you. I will say, be clear also. You can also tell your family that, I don't want this person to speak. Or you can say, hey, you don't have to speak. A lot of times people feel pressure. Okay, we're the children. We have to say something. Okay, we have to, but you don't actually have to, especially if you're not comfortable. I think especially times when someone has passed, there are so many emotions, there's so many pressures and shoulds that people feel that they need to do. So if it's not for you, if it doesn't feel right for you, please don't feel the pressure to do so just because it's seen as traditional or it's seen as an expectation or family is pressuring. Lean on each other to support each other in the process because maybe I am, as a child, am not feeling strong enough to deliver a eulogy. But maybe now I can lean on an uncle, I can lean on a cousin, and they can step in for me and fill in those gaps. Also, it's really good when writing eulogies to get different people's perspectives. I love when people do that. So, what I mean by that is I am my parents' child. I know them in this realm, I know them as a parent, but their friends know them like this. Their siblings also have a different relationship with them. And that's why it's nice to have tributes from different people because you get to hear different parts of your family, different stories of who they are. So put those things together and create a eulogy, create the obituary, create those items with a full, well-rounded story of who your loved one was. I think that's a beautiful thing to do if you're able to do so. Okay. Hello, thank you for joining. Oh, this is a big one. Okay. So my husband doesn't want to think about it. What can I do? I don't know if anyone else has gone through the process of planning an estate. This is definitely something that is seen not just in funeral planning, it's across the board, where one partner is wanting to have the conversation and the other partner is no, right? Natalie, you probably see the same thing when it comes to life insurance, like, okay, let's get it. The other one is like, no, what did I see? I sat with someone the other day and he looked at me and he said, well, I have no intention of dying. I said, well, I understand. I absolutely understand. But in the event that it should happen, let's just talk about some options, But I think it's important that we have conversations like this. And I want you, when talking to me, to feel comfortable enough to make those jokes, right? To feel comfortable in the space so that it's not so restrictive. And that's something that's important. When you're saying, especially in this case, she's saying her husband doesn't want to talk about this, making it comfortable for him, wherever he might be, might make it a little bit easier. Meeting him where he is, kind of having those conversations that way. It makes it a lot easier for us if it's relaxed, if we're sitting here, with our tea and it's not something that's very structured and feeling very formal, to ease into the process of what's involved. I also think it's good to take it out of end of life as much as you can. There are many things that we have to do when it comes to preparing our legacies. And this is part of our legacy plan. This is part of our estate planning. So try to take it out as much as you can of what decisions are actually being made and consider it in the context of this is part of my legacy of what I need to do. Now, the other one, I was just speaking to someone this week about this, and this is what they told me. They said, when speaking to gentlemen specifically, have them think about their daughters. Have them think not about themselves and the fact that they need to do this plan, but that their daughters, that their children, what are they going to be experiencing? What are some things that they're going to be going through? And can you make it easier for your daughters? Use their love for their children, use their love for their daughters specifically as leverage or as a way to have them think outside of themselves as to what we are planning for and who it will be affecting, right? I think that's a beautiful way of thinking about it, because when it comes to me going through my affairs, yeah, I'll get to this, I'll get to that, I'll get to this. It's fine. It's about me. I can make myself wait. I can do it when I'm ready. But if I change my perception, instead of thinking of myself, now I'm thinking, oh, this person's going to have to do all this now. Oh my goodness, they're going to have to go through all these papers. Oh, wow. And now they won't know who's going to get what if I don't get this done now. It changes your whole perception of what you need to do and how important it is to get it done as soon as possible. Because it's not about us now. It's about those that we love. And that's another beautiful way of thinking about it. There are many ways to approach this end of life planning and these discussions, and use what works best for you, what resonates with you, what resonates with your family to help you get through this process. That's what I do. I help navigate these conversations. I help put it to the forefront so that we're all thinking about it, so that we're having these chats. And I love it. I absolutely love it because it's important. And I'm comfortable in this space. So I'm happy to hold this space to be here with you while you're trying to understand what's involved and how to plan ahead. Yeah, finances are generally a mess. When someone passes without any planning, can we just talk about the importance of telling your family where all your money is? I don't know how many times when it comes to helping a family close an estate, they're coming with, I don't know where the banking information is. I don't know how many accounts they had. I don't even know anything, because when you're going through that, what I call it the briefcase, right? All the paperwork and things that you find all over the place. When you're going through that paperwork, you find this business card, that business card, this account number, that account number. And I'm guilty of this as well, where I know right now that you're going to see a lot of things that I intend to close. Okay. Something that I will be working to get done the next time we come on this live. You guys can hold me accountable. But there's things that I intend to close, that I tend to look after, but haven't gone around to it as yet. So to make it easier for those who will be closing your estate, if it is no longer active, discard it, shred it, throw it out, please, so that they don't have to go through all this paperwork trying to decide, is this something that's important or is it not? That's your tip for this week. Please go ahead, right? Don't laughing at me. Yeah, I know. This is what I do, and still I'm human. Yes. Okay. We talked about that one. We talked about paying for your funeral. Yes. How do I pay for a funeral? You can pay for it. You can pay for it in full. You can pay for it over time. It's up to you how you choose to pay for your funerals if you're doing it in advance. And just so you're aware too, when it comes to your funeral arrangements, you can choose to pay for it, or you can just arrange it without paying, right? If you're not in a position where you want to start paying for it, or you're able to start paying for it now, you can still make your wishes known. We'll still create a file, give all of that information that we're going to have to get from your family to make that part easier for them, and then they'll pay for it at the time. Okay, so you still have that option. It all depends on what works best for you. And if you can afford it, if you want to, go ahead, please do. Put some money and start paying for your funeral ahead of time. But if not, just make the arrangements. So at least that way your family knows what your wishes are. All right. Also, feel free, if you're online and you have any questions, please jump in with any questions that you might have. Oh, here's one that I love. I like talking about this one. This is from me, from Minnelle to all. What does it mean when the doctor says, or the healthcare practitioner says, okay, it's time for you to start getting the affairs in order? So when it comes to that, a lot of times people hear that when they're in a hospital, when they're in nursing home or anything like that, and they call the funeral home and say, oh my goodness, I have to do everything. I have to make the arrangements. The doctor says I need to make arrangements. Sometimes just clarify what exactly they need from you. Because a lot of the times what they require is who is going to be the first phone call. What is the name of the funeral home? Did you have the permission? Have you spoken with the funeral home saying, yes, I would like you to take care of my loved one? I'll go over the details with you later, but I just know that you're the one I want to use. Okay. Maybe you don't know that yet. So now you need to call the funeral homes, get some information from us to find out, okay, New Haven works. I do like what you guys do. Okay, let me go ahead and use you. But if that's not the case and you already know I'm coming, I want New Haven to look after the service, but I'm not quite ready yet to make all these arrangements because I need to do, you know what it's like when someone is in the hospital. There's a list so long of things, you're exhausted. If you do not have capacity to go through and make all of the details, selecting caskets, all of that, if you don't have capacity for that, you don't need to. You can simply say, hey, I just want to make it clear that this is what I would like to do. I would like to use you. We can work with you from there. Please know that you don't have to do everything. I say that because we get calls from families often who feel that, I talked about it before, that pressure to do more, that pressure to complete everything. But if that's not where you are at the time of calling, you don't have to. We will work with you. We will take the information that we need, and then we can stop there. And we'll walk you through the process at the time the person is passed. We are end of life professionals. I am a funeral director. This is what we do. So you can lean on us to guide you through it. You don't have to do it all in one moment if you're not ready and if you're not at the capacity to do so. Just want to give you that grace, just so you have that time. What is the cost for arranging? For arranging a funeral, there's no cost to sit down and have a conversation or learn about making funeral arrangements at all. The cost for planning a funeral, the cost for an actual funeral depends on the services you'd like to have. I still use for us a traditional service, meaning a day of viewing, service, service the next day, caskets, maybe a casket spray, meaning the flowers that go on top. You can still be in and around, well, you can go to our quote builder and find out exactly how much, but I like to use a 10,000 range, somewhere in and around there, just so you have an idea of how much it might cost. But that's based on your choices. I say 10. You might choose to have a $30,000 casket. If that's what you want, please go ahead. You can choose whatever kind of services you like to have. I really suggest that if you go to, you can go to my web. No, you can't. Yes, you can. You can go to my website. You can go to New Haven's website. Go to any of us, whatever is easiest one for you to find. I know some people don't like going to the funeral home, so I'll give you the other option. And you go there, you use the quote builder, right? So it's online. You like shopping online. You go ahead, you look at different options, see what works for you, and then find out how much it might cost. That way, from the comfort of your home, you can start getting an idea of a lot of things and then start creating your list so you can come in and start knocking them off. This is what I have to do for my estate. The arrangements of planning without paying option you spoke to. Oh, no, so if someone wants to make pre-arrangements without paying for it, there's no cost for that. There's no cost just to sit down, talk, and to make those arrangements. No, it's just a matter of making those wishes known. We put it on file, we keep it there. No charge. No. Mhm. Yeah. And then it depends how long, like just for your time, I would say imagine an hour or so that we would sit down together, take your wishes, take the information, keep it on file. And then in that case, your family will be paying the funeral cost in the future. So you'll want to make sure that you have funds aside or somewhere to cover the future cost of that funeral arrangements because it hasn't been locked in now. So whatever that future cost is, that's what they'll be paying. All right, let's see. Couple more here. Well, this is a theme right now. So I don't want to have, what happens if I don't want to have anything? How do I make sure my family agrees? Okay. I mentioned this when I was talking about funerals before. Funerals are for your family, right? Or for those who are left behind. Now, if you don't want to have anything at all, if you've decided I want to have a very, very simple service and I don't want anything, I would only say to you, and this is Minnelle, please allow ending well with Minnelle. This is Minnelle talking to you. I would only suggest that you allow your family the space to have a service should they choose, or to have something should they choose. Part of the reason, I think a lot of this goes back to why do we have funerals? The reason we have funerals is to allow community to come together, to support the family, to lift them up, to share the grief together, the stories together, and to support each other through the process. To celebrate, as many people use the phrase, to celebrate a life, to share those stories and share and celebrate the person who has passed on. And part of grieving for many is having that funeral service to acknowledge the fact that the person has passed and allow for a time of release. There is a reason, especially when it comes to if we're doing a burial, in that moment when you see the casket going into the earth, there's a reason that we have that release, those tears, and that it's a very emotional time. In the same way, if someone chooses to be cremated, in that time, you'll see the for us at least, you'll see the vehicle drive away. We do the honor walk where everybody comes outside and you watch the casket be driven away. And that gives you that feeling again of release and saying that final goodbye to your loved one. The reason that that happens is to help the family in that grieving process, to acknowledge the death, to feel those feelings, to grieve, and then help them move forward. So funerals serve a great purpose. And there's a reason that we all come, I keep saying reason, but we come out, we will show up at the time that someone passes. And many people see that and say, why didn't they show up for me when I was alive? But they all want to show up when I passed. It's true. It's true. In life, we are busy, things are happening. We might not be able to show up as often as we would like, but that doesn't mean you're not in our thoughts. But at the time that someone has passed, now, now it's as though it's a reminder for many of us that life is short, that life is fleeting. And we need to take that moment to honor the person who had passed and to show up to support those who they left behind. There's a reason that why when a celebrity passes, suddenly we want to share photos. We want to show like I was here. I knew them. I felt feelings when they passed because it's collective and we want to feel that together. We're creating our community. So as you can tell, I'm very passionate about why we should have funerals. So I would encourage you that even if you don't want to have anything large, that's fine. But allow your family the space and the freedom to grieve and to celebrate or to mourn as they need, because they might need that moment. And if you're very adamant saying, no, I want nothing, you could be taking away their opportunity to do that. And then if they really wanted to, now they'll feel guilty for doing what they need to help them process. So I'll leave it at that. All right. What may be the cost of a plot? It depends on where you are. So we are in Ontario, Canada. If you're looking for a cemetery plot in Ontario, it can range if you're looking at Northern Ontario versus Mount Pleasant, downtown in the heart of the city. It's land. So wherever you are choosing to purchase land, the cost will be relative. So a cemetery plot can go anywhere from, I would say 4,000 if you're looking at just the grave to 30,000, It really ranges based on where you're looking and how much you choose to do. So if you're looking when it comes to prearranging, you can prearrange just the plot, just the grave, the land, and stop there. In that case, you prearrange the land, and then your family will purchase the other things at the time. Or you can do everything. So in that case, you'll go through and you'll select the land, you'll select the kind of marker you'd like to have. There's other items there. I am not a cemetery professional. This is just my industry knowledge. They will go through the specifics with you on what you can plan for the cemetery. So keep that in mind. And then cremation versus burial. Cremation is cheaper because the cost of cremation is less than the cost of purchasing land. However, do not forget to consider, what would you like to do with your cremated remains once you have been cremated? Are they going to be going back with the family where they're going to hold on to them? Are they going to be scattered? Would you like them to be buried? Because they can still be buried. Would you like them to be placed in a niche, in a columbarium, which is like one of the walls where the urns will go inside? It's a nice place that family and friends can come and visit, spend time. So consider, not only do I choose to be buried or do I choose to be cremated, but what would I like to have done and how do I want to be memorialized or remembered? Because many people, like, I'll take my dad as an example. He loves to go and visit. He would go and visit his mom, his dad. He would go to the cemetery, spend time. That was something that was important to him. There are people who will never go to the cemetery. They never want to go back. They're not going to go back for Mother's Day, for birthdays. They don't want to go back to that space. They would rather remember their loved one some other way. There are people who want to have the urn at home with them so they can see their loved one, talk to them, like just spend time or just have them present and close. There are so many different ways that people choose to remember their loved ones. So just choose what works best for you and what works well for your family. All right. So when pre-planning, can you pick specific plots at various cemeteries in the GTA? When you're pre-planning your cemetery, you're purchasing a land. So just purchasing a land. You're purchasing land. So you're choosing a spot. However, I think what your question is saying is, if I decide, let's say I'm purchasing a plot here in Ontario, and then I decide to move to, what's the place up there? Barrie, or I choose to move somewhere else, especially when someone is younger, that's typically a question that's asked. So in that case, you can transfer your plot somewhere else. As long as it's within, I believe, the same company, you're fine to do that. Same thing happens with a funeral. Now, a funeral specific to a person, right? So my funeral is tied to me. If I decide to, go and retire in the beautiful island of Antigua, right? And I should pass there, then I could have my funeral funds paid out to the funeral home in Antigua, and then they can look after my arrangements there. So there is flexibility. You're not locked into wherever you are, but there's different ways that you can plan for that and make arrangements. On that, I that's one option if I wanted to stay in Antigua, but if I wanted to come back, there's also items and plans that are available to cover the cost to bring me back if it's important to me. Like, let's say someone has purchased a plot here and they pass outside and they want to come back home, you can do that as well, right? So it covers all the costs to bring you back. It covers the cost if a family member or someone has to go look after the arrangements, if you need a translator, all of that can be done. And then they'll bring you back so that you can be buried here, right? It's important. These are the things that I guess, the background of things that we don't think about with regards to the logistics of how estate and funeral planning works. So it's good to have these conversations. That way everybody knows. Okay. Let's see. I think I'm onto these questions. Oh, I love this one. So this person was asking, how can I impact society with my legacy planning? And I'm going to start probably somewhere different. I go back to the life stories. I would like to start there because I know for me, and I was talking with a few other people about it as well, when it comes to sharing, when it comes to as we age, right, as our parents and our grandparents age, it's no longer the things, the tangible items that really carry that much value. And tell me if you agree. It's really the time that we're spending with each other. And so for us, as maybe two generations down, speaking to our grandparents, it's hearing their stories. It's hearing about their lives, what it was like for them as children, the lessons that they learned, and sharing that perspective and that knowledge. So what is one way that you can impact society? Share your story, write your lessons down, create a tree of your a family tree. By doing those things, they're the intangibles, really, but it gives context and it helps us, the generations down the line, know who we are, to create history. And I think especially as the Black community within the Toronto, within Ontario, we don't have, a history of many generations back. Remember, I did a video I was talking about, do you know your grandparents? What do you know about them? And a lot of us don't have anything that dates back that far. So really sharing that perspective, sharing your stories is a great way to impact society, community, and your direct lineage. So that's an encouragement. Second, you can always, when it comes to your estate planning, you can always leave in your will, or you can leave in your financial plan, leave space for charitable donations. A lot of people, we were talking about before, all that, the money that ends up, the taxes that people aren't prepared for, like when you have your RSP, when your RSP is now, it's considered as though you've sold everything, right? When you pass, it's considered as though you sold all of your assets. So now you have this large amount of money that is going to be throwing your taxes off a little bit, well, the deceased person's taxes off. So now maybe you could do something like create a charity and offer some charitable giving that will help to offset some of the taxes that might have to be paid. There's many ways to transfer assets, and of course, that is a huge topic, but that is something that you can do to impact society and impact community. Now you're sharing what's important to you, not just with those around you, but also with the community at large. Might want to have a Minnelle Williams Foundation, something like that. Why not? Right? It's your estate, it's your legacy, and you can create it however you'd like. Whew. I feel like I've been speaking very quickly and going over a lot of information. So I think I'll stop here. I think, oh yeah, we're almost at the 40-minute mark. Okay. I think that's good. I think we've gone through a lot of the questions. I'm going to continue this one. So I think once a month, probably, or sorry, I'm going to do this bi-weekly. Once in a while, I'll have to do these solo sessions where I'll answer questions that I receive often and things. And it's also address some things that I'm seeing that's happening in the news, the media, and just try to help us learn a little bit more about estate planning and normalize this conversation. Let's be in spaces where we're talking about end of life and sharing our wins, sharing our information, sharing resources so that we can support each other in this process, because generational wealth and generational impact happens when we are purposeful in what we are doing. All right. So thank you very much. I appreciate you guys for joining and being engaged in the comments. This is wonderful. And for those well, I guess it's closed now, but if you were watching on Instagram, I appreciate you as well. I will see you guys in 2 weeks for another episode of Ending Well with Minnelle. Take care. And please go ahead and action one of the items that we spoke about today, or share it with somebody else. If I can support you, please go ahead and reach out. You can find me at New Haven Funeral Center in newhavenfuneralcenter.com, or directly at minnellewilliams.com for more information, or any of my socials. Take care and good night.